Imagine waking up in the middle of the night, feeling a strange chill running down your spine. The room is dark, silent. Nothing seems out of place. But then, you notice something eerie. A lock of your hair, missing. Someone had been there, standing over you while you slept. This wasn't a nightmare. It was the chilling reality for multiple residents of Pascagoula, Mississippi, in the summer of 1942. A prowler was on the loose, breaking into homes, not to steal valuables, but to cut pieces of hair from unsuspecting victims. The town would come to know him as the Phantom Barber. Pascagoula, a quiet coastal town, was gripped by fear as reports of the hair-snatching intruder spread. The crimes seemed bizarre, almost comical, until they weren't. At first, the mysterious burglar seemed harmless, sneaking into homes undetected, leaving nothing behind but strands of freshly cut hair. But as the weeks went on, the Phantom Barber's activities escalated, taking a sinister turn that would leave the town in terror. The first reports came from the convent of the Sisters of Perpetual Adoration. Two young girls, asleep in their shared room, awoke to find strands of their hair missing. Their windows had been forced open, the only evidence of an intruder. The same week, a local resident, Mrs. Heidelberg, reported a similar incident. She had gone to bed with long hair, only to wake up with uneven strands. Someone had stood over her while she slept. But who? And why? As police investigated, the town's fear grew. The break-ins followed a disturbing pattern, always at night, always through a forced window, and always targeting women or children. Whoever was behind the crimes never stole money, never ransacked the houses, just locks of hair, carefully snipped away. Was it a prank? A psychological disorder? Or something much darker? Then, the crimes turned violent. In late June 1942, a couple, Terrell and Lydia Schmidt, became the next victims. This time, it wasn't just a harmless hair theft. The intruder had broken into their home and attacked them brutally with an iron bar before escaping into the night. Lydia suffered severe injuries, while Terrell barely managed to call for help. The Phantom Barber had evolved, from a bizarre prowler to a violent assailant. The community demanded answers. Law enforcement increased night patrols, desperate to catch the perpetrator before more attacks occurred. But the Phantom Barber was elusive, slipping in and out of homes undetected. Residents began barricading their windows, keeping weapons nearby, and sleeping in fear, knowing the prowler could strike at any moment. What was his motive? Was he collecting trophies? Or was this just the beginning of something even worse? As police struggled to make progress, a suspect finally emerged. William Dolan, a local chemist with a history of conflicts in the town. Authorities claimed they had found human hair near his home, linking him to the break-ins. But Dolan vehemently denied any involvement. Despite this, he was arrested and convicted, not for the hair thefts, but for the attack on the Schmidt family. Was he really the Phantom Barber? Or was he just a convenient scapegoat? With Dolan behind bars, the hair-snatching crimes suddenly stopped. For many, this was proof enough of his guilt. But skeptics pointed out one major flaw: Dolan had no clear motive. Why would a chemist with no history of break-ins suddenly develop an obsession with stealing locks of hair? And if he had been the Phantom Barber, why had the crimes started so suddenly and stopped just as abruptly? Years later, many still question whether Dolan was truly the culprit. Some believe the real Phantom Barber was never caught, that he simply moved on, or worse, escalated to even more terrifying crimes elsewhere. Others think the entire case was mishandled, and the real perpetrator remained hidden in plain sight. The case of the Phantom Barber remains one of the strangest, most unsettling mysteries in American crime history. Was it a psychological compulsion, a twisted experiment, or something more sinister? Even now, over 80 years later, the truth remains elusive. One thing is certain: the people of Pascagoula never forgot the nights they lived in fear, wondering if they would wake up to find a stranger standing over them, scissors in hand. While the arrest of William Dolan seemed to close the case, Many residents of Pascagoula remained skeptical. Some believed the police had rushed to convict someone, anyone, to ease the growing hysteria in the town. Others whispered about cover-ups or the possibility that Dolan was simply an easy target, while the real Phantom Barber roamed free. The case had too many unanswered questions, and for some, the eerie sense of vulnerability never truly disappeared. What made the case so baffling was the lack of any clear motive. Serial criminals often seek financial gain, revenge, or personal gratification, but the Phantom Barber didn't fit the usual patterns. If the goal was violence, why did the intruder only attack one couple while simply cutting hair from others? If it was about power or control, why were the crimes so inconsistent? And if it was just a bizarre obsession, why did it suddenly stop? Another chilling theory emerged, that the Phantom Barber was never just one person. Some speculated that the crimes were part of a larger, more sinister ritual, possibly involving multiple individuals. The idea that the town had been the hunting ground for a hidden society of criminals, perhaps even something darker, sent shivers down the spines of those who still lived in Pascagoula. Then there was the unsettling timing. The summer of 1942 wasn't just any period in American history. It was the height of World War II. Military bases were on high alert, and Pascagoula, a major shipbuilding hub, was a crucial site for the war effort. Some locals whispered that the Phantom Barber's activities were actually a psychological warfare tactic, designed to create fear and chaos. But if that was the case, who was behind it? And why target such specific victims? One of the most bizarre details of the case was the type of hair that was stolen. Many of the victims reported that the strands taken from them were not just randomly snipped, but carefully selected and cut cleanly. This raised another possibility. Was the Phantom Barber collecting hair for a purpose? Could it have been used in rituals, disguises, or even wartime experiments? Theories grew wilder, but the police never found a definitive answer. Decades after the crimes, William Dolan was released from prison after new evidence cast doubt on his conviction. He maintained his innocence until his death, insisting he had been framed. This revelation only deepened the mystery. If Dolan wasn't the Phantom Barber, who was? And had the real criminal gone on to commit other, even worse crimes under a different identity? Modern criminologists have revisited the case, trying to understand the Phantom Barber's psyche. Some believe he may have been a disorganized offender, someone suffering from a psychological compulsion rather than a master criminal with a clear plan. Others suggest he may have been involved in medical or scientific work that required human hair, possibly for wigs, experiments, or forensic testing that was just beginning to emerge at the time. Despite these theories, the biggest question remains: why did the Phantom Barber stop? If he was never caught, why didn't he continue his crimes elsewhere? Did he move to another town under a different identity? Or was he someone close to the victims, someone who, for whatever reason, decided to simply walk away from his bizarre obsession? The abrupt end to the break-ins is one of the most unsettling aspects of the case. To this day, Pascagoula remains haunted by the legacy of the Phantom Barber. The story has become a part of local folklore, passed down through generations. Some still lock their windows a little tighter at night, half joking about the specter that once lurked in their town. But deep down, they know. Some mysteries are never truly solved. And the thought that someone, somewhere, still knows the truth is enough to send chills down anyone's spine. So, was the Phantom Barber just a strange anomaly, a product of war-era paranoia and small-town hysteria? Or was he something far more sinister, a predator who simply vanished into the darkness, never to be caught? The case may be cold, but the fear it created still lingers. Because if there's one thing more terrifying than a killer who is caught, it's a monster who gets away.